Have you ever walked into a room and felt like your own body betrayed you? Like your feet touched the ground but your presence didn't? You're breathing, moving, trying to stand tall, but the room treats you like fog, a shape, a shadow. You speak, and your voice doesn't echo. It just disappears, like it never even existed. You're not ignored, you're erased. You give, and no one holds it like it matters. You show up, and the world walks past you like your background furniture. And it doesn't just sting, it consumes. Because the truth isn't that you don't matter. It's that somewhere between survival and silence, your fire got buried under noise you didn't even create. You're not desperate for claps. You don't want a red carpet, a standing ovation, or a crown. All you ever wanted was for your presence to hit, to be felt without trying, to walk into a room and make the air tighten, for your silence to cut deeper than 1,000 screams. You want your stillness to shake people's bones. But here's the catch. You don't get that power by becoming more. You get it by becoming less of what's killing your weight. Less scattered, less tangled in poison, less polluted by fake smiles, dead routines, and invisible chains that choke you while you pretend you're fine. Because some men shout to be noticed, others don't need volume. They carry thunder in their stillness. But if you're quiet, and you're still dismissed, you're not mysterious, you're drifting. And that's when you go inward. That's when you rip apart the lies. Because something inside you is bleeding power, and you don't even see it. Not because you're weak, but because you're buried. Habits that numb you, patterns that blur you, thoughts that dim you before the world even gets a chance to see the fire. Respect doesn't disappear in explosions. It leaks in silence. It rots from the inside while you wear a smile that says, "I'm fine." But you're not. You feel it. Every time someone talks over you, every time your loyalty is met with betrayal, every time your effort is treated like background noise. You're not asking for the world. You're asking to feel real. And that's why this has to end. The Stoics didn't beg to be seen. They burned away the noise until nothing could touch their essence. Apatheia, their weapon of choice. Not apathy, not numbness, but pure surgical self-mastery. They didn't drown the world in noise. They silenced their chaos until the world couldn't ignore what remained. Seneca said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if your how is infected? What if your daily habits, your silence, your overthinking, your nice guy rituals are the very reasons people don't feel your weight? They sense it. They see it. They back away. Not because they hate you, but because your presence doesn't shake them. And this isn't fixed by grinding harder. This isn't about reading more books or becoming a checklist robot. This is soul demolition. We're not here to improve you, we're here to break what's killing you. The 5 habits you're about to confront, these aren't surface wounds, these are deep fractures. The kind of wounds that bleed in silence while you pretend you're healed. Invisible scars that sabotage your power while you smile through the pain. But no more. We're done taping over bullet holes. We're done shrinking ourselves to make cowards comfortable. This isn't self-help. This is self-war. We're going to peel every false layer off you like skin soaked in gasoline, and we're going to light it, slowly, mercilessly, until only the core remains, the man who doesn't need to be seen because he cannot be ignored. This video is not for the faint-hearted. This is for the man who's been betrayed so quietly, he stopped screaming. For the man who was loyal when it was unfashionable, strong when no one noticed, and broken in ways that made him numb, not weak. For the man who sat in silence while people he loved laughed with his enemies, who was forgotten by women he would have died for, who kept showing up even when life spat in his face. You didn't fold. But now you rise. Don't skip. Don't multitask. Don't scroll. Bleed with this video, because somewhere inside this storm of truth, there's going to be a sentence that shatters your numbness. One sentence that burns your fake self to the ground and hands you the ashes. And from those ashes, you build the man no one can erase. Like, share, subscribe, or don't. But if this message cracks something wide open in your chest, then don't you dare leave in silence. Drop this in the comments like a funeral for your invisibility. I refuse to carry what keeps me invisible, and mean it like a threat. Now let's get into it. Number 1. Chasing approval. The fastest way to lose your power is to beg for someone to hand it back to you. You lose the war the moment you ask, "Do they like me?" You lose your edge the second you twist your soul to fit into a space that never even wanted the real you. Look at wolves. They don't bark for permission. They don't whimper for claps. They move in silence, feared by the weak and respected by the wild. But here you are, reshaping your words, shrinking your truth, editing your fire, just to make fragile people comfortable, laughing at jokes that bruise your mind, hiding your greatness in the attic of politeness, hoping someone out there finally sees you. But let me tell you something raw. The people you're trying to impress are barely even impressed by themselves. Every time you say yes when your gut screams no, you teach them how to ignore you. Every time you play small to keep their ego inflated, you bury yourself a little deeper in a coffin made of compliments. Respect built on approval is a sandcastle in a storm, fragile, fake, and finished the moment the tide turns. The second you stop feeding their insecurities, they ghost you. Their applause dies, their respect rots. Because it was never rooted in who you are. It was based on how well you performed their script. You want to know why you chase their validation like a starving dog chases scraps. Because somewhere along the line, maybe in childhood, maybe after your first heartbreak, you started believing you weren't enough as you are. They ignored you when you deserved praise. They lifted others while you stood in the shadows. And now you're still carrying that ache, dressing it up in achievements, hoping someone will finally look you in the eyes and say, "You matter." But crumbs don't build kings. And no man sitting at the feet of the crowd ever built a throne above it. A man who needs claps will always dance for them. A man who feeds on validation will always starve when the lights go out. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. And if that doesn't burn into your bones, read it again. Let them mock you. Let them doubt you. Let them whisper behind closed doors. Because the cost of being real is rejection by the fake. But the reward? The reward is finally hearing your own voice. Clear, thunderous, unmoved. You won't need their nods. You won't need their pity praise. Because your soul will finally feel full without their noise. Stop playing the puppet. Burn the mask. Shatter the need to be liked. Your truth doesn't need polishing. Your power doesn't need permission. Instead of running toward the noise, sit in your silence and let your results scream. When you become a man who doesn't crave attention, the world begins to watch. They sense it. That cold, untouchable presence of a man who's no longer seeking approval, but forging it in fire. You walk into a room and you're not loud. You're not desperate. But every pair of eyes feels you. Not because you're trying to be seen, but because you stopped trying. Let your presence be an earthquake in a room full of whispers. Let your calm be louder than their applause. Respect isn't handed to the loudest voice. It's reserved for the rarest souls. Approval is the trap. And silence? Silence is where real kings sharpen their swords. Don't beg for claps. Be the man they can't ignore, even if they'll never admit it out loud. Number 2. Overexplaining yourself. There's a storm that builds in men who never felt heard, a chaos that rattles behind their ribs, waiting for a moment to scream, "Let me explain," and so they do. They explain until their throat burns, until their words drip like blood on cold concrete, begging someone, anyone, to just understand. But explaining yourself? That's not power. That's panic. That's the sound of a man who's still afraid he might be wrong. You can smell it. You can feel it. That nervous tone, that fast breath, that cracked voice. It's not confidence. It's survival mode in disguise. And when the world hears it, they don't respect you more. They just realize how easy you are to shake. You start off strong. You say something real. But then they squint. They question. They tilt their head and give you that look that makes your spine tighten. And instead of holding the silence like a weapon, you break. You fill the space with noise. You explain your heart, your history, your motives, your damn soul, like you owe them a PowerPoint on your existence. You think if you just give enough context, they'll finally get it. But they won't, because they're not confused. They're just not invested. And now you're over here bleeding identity while they sip coffee like nothing's happening. Over-explaining is the most polite form of self-abandonment. It's spiritual striptease. You think you're winning them over, but all they see is someone trying to justify their own shadow. Real men don't do that. Real power doesn't chase understanding. It creates presence so loud, words become irrelevant. When you speak from grounded truth, you don't ask to be understood. You command to be felt. And if they don't get it, let them drown in their own confusion. That's not your burden. That's their limitation. The great ones move like ancient storms, still on the outside, violent underneath. They speak once, and that one sentence lands like a meteor. They're not loud because they don't have to be. Their silence haunts rooms. Their presence causes internal earthquakes. They walk into conversations like shadows with spines, measured, unbothered, unshakable. They don't give explanations. They give consequences. And people respect them, not because they understand them, but because they feel the fire humming just beneath the calm. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That isn't advice. That's a dare, a challenge to destroy your addiction to being liked, to drop your craving for clarity, because the more you explain, the more you evaporate. You dilute your power with every extra word. They don't hear you, they weigh you. And if your words feel light, they drop you. But if your silence carries weight, if your presence is soaked in certainty, they'll orbit around you like you're carved from something ancient. You've been conditioned to think your value needs subtitles, that your worth needs a backstory, that your fire needs permission, but not anymore. Speak once, then vanish. Let the confusion sit in their bones. Let them wonder what you meant. Let your absence hit harder than your explanation ever could. You are not a song that needs decoding. You're a lightning strike. Brief, violent, unforgettable. Say less, mean more. Become the kind of man who walks away mid-sentence and still gets remembered like scripture. No more bleeding for listeners who aren't even tuned in. No more dancing for ears that were never built to hear you. The next time they look at you with doubt in their eyes and questions on their tongue, stare back and say nothing. Let the silence do what your over-explaining never could. Make them feel small, forever doubting you in the first place. Number 3. Emotional outbursts. Nothing shatters respect faster than the eruption of a man undone by his own emotions. One wild, uncontrollable outburst, one public unraveling, one snap at the wrong moment, and suddenly the world doesn't see strength, they see weakness. A man crumbling under the weight of his own chaos. Not a force to be reckoned with, but a hazard to be avoided. People don't admire explosions, they run from them. They don't seek out the storm, they hide in the shadows, fearing the next lightning strike. Because when you lose control, you don't just break your image, you fracture their trust. You become unpredictable, dangerous, fragile. But I get it. I see the pressure. You bottle it all up. Every insult you swallow, every jab you ignore, every slight you pretend doesn't cut you to the core. You become a quiet volcano, tension building in the dark, waiting for the moment to blow. And when that moment comes, it's not the single insult or the petty offense. It's the entire mountain of silence crashing down at once. The pressure isn't in the outburst itself. It's in the years of holding it hostage, pretending you're stronger than you feel. But pretending is poison. It corrodes your soul. It fractures your foundation. And when the dam breaks, it leaves devastation in its wake, both inside you and out. Seneca said it best. Anger is a kind of acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured. That's the brutal truth. Every emotional explosion is a crack in your armor, a piece of your dignity lost to the fire of momentary fury. It's not just about how others see you. It's about what it does to your own core. Rage doesn't make you powerful. It devours you from within. It leaves you hollow, exhausted, and unreliable. People don't fear a man who controls himself. They respect him. Because control isn't absence of feeling. It's mastery over feeling. It's a quiet, fierce strength like steel forged in fire and hammered by storms. Its presence so steady, so unshakable, that it moves mountains without a word. Start training your mind to catch the spark before it ignites the forest. Recognize your triggers, those tiny fires people light around you, hoping you'll burn. Don't feed them. Don't fall into the trap of reaction. Don't give them the satisfaction of your unraveling. Instead, wrap yourself in silence. Let your calm be a fortress. Let them wonder what's beneath the surface. That uncertainty makes you untouchable. It builds power like a shadow cloaked in midnight. People will lean in, not out. They'll crave your steadiness in a world drowning in chaos. You don't owe the world your storms. You owe yourself peace, real peace, the kind that roots you deep, that holds you steady when everything around you crumbles. When peace becomes your weapon, your armor, your natural state, you become a beacon, the lighthouse standing tall while everything else crashes to pieces. The man people don't just respect, but rely on. The man who doesn't break. The man who endures. The man who commands silence, commands power, commands respect. Not because he raises his voice, but because he's the calm no one else can touch. Number 4. Being too available. Being everywhere at once isn't power. It's surrender. When you stretch yourself thin, answering every call, replying to every ping, dropping everything like a puppet on a string, you don't become indispensable. You become invisible. Like air, like noise nobody listens to anymore. Your constant presence becomes background static, drowning your worth in a sea of always there. They stop seeing you and start treating you like an option, because that's exactly what you let yourself be. This isn't some heartless truth. It's savage reality. Humans crave what's hard to get, what demands sacrifice. Scarcity lights a fire, boundaries forge steel. But when you let your time be trampled on like cheap dirt, Your value is buried beneath the weight of endless availability. Every time you drop your guard to please, to prove you care, you train the world to take you for granted. You become a well-worn path, walked over and forgotten. Loyalty can be a trap disguised as virtue. Caring can chain you in invisible shackles forged by your own fear, the fear of being labeled selfish, cold, unworthy. So you show up again and again, bleeding your energy into a bottomless pit. You think you're earning respect, but respect doesn't come from bending until you break. It rises when you stand unyielding, when you refuse to be everyone's crutch, everyone's afterthought. Musonius Rufus whispered this truth across time. If you have nothing better than silence, then keep silent. Let that echo. Your presence, your very existence, must become a fortress, an enigma wrapped in steel and shadow. Not open gates welcoming every passerby to trample your worth. Be a prize locked away, not a cheap gift handed out to anyone with the nerve to ask. When you carve out sacred boundaries, the world shifts. The leeches recoil, the takers vanish. The weak and unworthy fade into the void, and those who matter, those who see your true worth, will fight harder to earn your time. You'll feel it, a pulse, raw and electric, rising from the depths of your own reclaiming. Your value roaring like a beast, no longer chained. You don't have to vanish into cold silence. You don't need to ghost the world to make it respect you. But you must stop scattering pieces of yourself to anyone who reaches out. Stop diluting your presence into noise. Give less, but pour your soul into what you do give. Become the storm that decides when to rage and when to rest. The rare force that commands attention by simply existing on your terms. That's how presence transforms, from forgotten background into a thunderclap no one can ignore. Number 5. Complaining and playing the victim. Respect doesn't dwell in the echo chamber of your complaints. It burns in the fires of ruthless self-command. When you flood the air with your pain, begging the world to lower its gaze in sympathy, you're handing away your power piece by piece. Sympathy is the drug of the weak, a fleeting fix that robs you of hunger, dulls the sharp edges that carve kings from ruins. No one crowns the man who bleeds ink with every word, who builds a monument out of his scars instead of burning them to ash and rising. Pain is a poison if you clutch it like a lifeline. When your identity twists and knots around your suffering, you become a ghost, fading, shrinking, a marionette in a tragedy scripted by your own lament. Complaints are chains. Why me is a noose, tightening with every whimper. The victim is not the master of his fate. He's a puppet shaking on threads pulled by strangers. The victim waits with hollow eyes, craving a savior in a world that worships the unbreakable. Spoiler, the savior is never coming. No cavalry storms the horizon. Stoicism slams the truth into your gut like a hammer to a cracked skull. Epictetus didn't whisper advice, he detonated it. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Life threw grenades, betrayals, brutality, loss, but the men who shattered empires didn't whimper in the wreckage. They swallowed their agony and spat fire. They didn't replay their misery, they obliterated it. Stop coughing up your pain like a worn-out confession. Snatch your soul back from the abyss where excuses breed. Pain is a brutal forge, hot, violent, relentless, but it only sculpts gods from those who refuse to crumble. Complaining? It's a slow, corrosive death that eats your marrow. No throne awaits the man who limps through life weighed down by a sack of grievances. Replace every bitter word with a thunderclap of action. Transform every why me into a war cry. Watch me burn this world down and rebuild it in my image. Pity is a poison that drains your veins. Progress is a fire that claws upward through stone. The day you bury the victim inside is the day the world's eyes widen, not because life was kind, but because you became unstoppable despite it. That's respect forged in chaos, born in defiance, carved by the relentless beat of a heart that refuses to break. You were never forged to shrink into shadows or settle for crumbs tossed by the indifferent. You were born roaring, meant to stand tall, unshaken, a force impossible to ignore. Disrespect, dismissal, being used like a tool. Their poison, chains forged by habits that grind you down and keep you small. Chasing approval like a lost dog, begging for scraps. Over-explaining until your voice becomes a weak echo, letting emotional chaos flood your throne and crack your foundation. Being everywhere, for everyone, until you disappear into the noise. Complaining like a wounded animal, bleeding power with every word. These aren't quirks, they're cages. And today, something inside you shattered the lock. The ancient Stoics grasped a brutal truth. Respect begins not with the world, but with the savage battlefield inside your own mind. They knew that to command respect, you must first conquer yourself, rip apart the chains, and rise from the ashes of every weakness that once ruled you. Now, that fire burns in you. This isn't a gentle awakening, it's a war cry, a fierce, untamed blaze ready to scorch everything that dares stand in your way. Your presence is no longer a whisper, it's a storm. You don't ask for respect, you take it. You don't seek permission, you rewrite the rules. The world will feel you, wild, relentless, unbreakable, for the first time. This is your reckoning, your rebirth, your declaration. I am here. I am worthy. I am unstoppable. Like this video if you're ready to burn the old you to ash. Share it with the lost souls still trapped in their cages. Drop your affirmations below and let the world hear your roar. Subscribe, because this journey has just erupted. The man you are becoming will shake the earth beneath their feet, and they'll never forget the day you showed up as the storm.